In a dismal future, a blazing neon light from the past cuts a pathway toward tomorrow. Bounding into comics and Brett R. Smith present Escape from the Future.
Welcome to Escape from the Future, brought to you by Bounding into Comics. I'm your host and comic veteran, Brett R. Smith, and joining me today is my good friend, Terry Shappert. Terry is a Green Beret and Master Sergeant in the U.S. Army Special Forces. He's also an expert on small arms, demolition, military tactics, and combat medicine. He's hosted a number of combat and adventure shows on television, including Shark Attack Survival Guide, Dude, You're Screwed, and currently is the host of the Outdoor Channel series Hollywood Weapons, now in its sixth season, which just debuted this past week. Welcome, brother, and thanks for doing this.
Yeah, hey, first of all, always good to talk to you. We were just talking offline because you and I are we're like nerds that just can talk about movies and shit all day, but yeah. I'm retired, so I retired from Special Forces in 2016 as a team sergeant, and I joke, I'm not an expert on shit. Like, I'm good at some things, like I know a little bit about this, but I'm not, there's way better people on all of these subjects than me. So I'm just like, as Rocky says, I'm just a ham and egger, man.
Yeah, that's modesty. You're also a sniper, which I failed to mention, which is an expert in something else. So I would argue that you are experts on these things. I mean, you don't get that Green Beret for nothing, man. So. Well,
yeah, it is. One of my jobs too, I work about 4 or 5 times a year. There's the final training, the final exercise that the Green Beret students have to go through. It's called Robin Sage, and it's been going on since, I want to say, the late 60s, early 70s. And it's a simulated guerrilla warfare thing. So like North Carolina becomes Pineland, which is a country that's been taken over by an illegitimate communist government. And the students infiltrate into Pineland. They meet like a force of guerrillas that are led by, enroll though, the guy's he's a guerrilla, he's a G chief, guerrilla chief, but he's a retired Green Beret sergeant major. And some guys are actual infantry guys. Some of them are just civilians that know, and they just basically, the team goes in, has to train them on guerrilla tactics, infantry stuff, raids, ambushes. They have to set up medical support, how to get guys out of country, how to get money, how to get guns. I on my lane, I'm a role player, but you kind of are as an instructor too, because you can kind of like steer them and go, hey guys, have you thought about this? I play the leader of the underground in their scenario. So I'm the dude who knows a dude who can get shit for you. So like, you need guns, I got a black market guy I can get you. Oh, you want to start initiating a informations operation campaign like propaganda? I know a professor at this college that is plugged into all these Facebook groups, and I know she's down with our cause. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of high pressure. It's 2 weeks. I'm out in the woods with these guys, and this is their final thing. If they get the go on this, then they get their Green Beret, their Special Forces tab, and then usually they'll go to a language course and then go on to whatever group they get assigned to. So it's a lot of high pressure, lots riding on it. And these cats have been in the pipeline for like sometimes up to like several years at this point. So wow. Everything's riding on it. And I went through this. I went through this same lane that I work on now, which is funny because there's like 10 in North Carolina. I think there's like probably 10 teams around the state doing the same thing. This lane, I was on this lane in like 92, back when we were still using chainmail and crossbows. So it's cool. I will say this: there's the country's kind of collapsing. The military's going through a lot of problems, but these young guys that I see in the Special Forces course these guys are pipe hitters, man. They're young, they're aggressive, they're fucking super smart, and we're in good hands with those guys in the regiment. It just depends if the military writ large knows what the hell they're doing. But there's still, when I hear people talk about, the young guys, I'm like, not the guys I see. The dudes I see are killers. At the end of it, though, I joke because a lot of them recognize me from the silly TV crap I've done, and I don't really break role because I tell them my name's Terry. I have a backstory. I was a dive instructor, which I am, and my father was taken by by the bad guys, and he was executed, and my dad is dead. So it's like your backstory has to be something you can talk intelligently about. And now I'm in this area because I had to flee where I lived on the Outer Banks. And at the end of it, we all get to meet each other. They come in, and they realize how many people are backside supporting us, from drivers and farmers and other role players and, you know, the guerrilla guys. And we all introduce ourselves. And I say to them, I go, hey guys, my name is Terry Shappert. I said, I'm kind of a big fucking deal. I'm a D-list cable celebrity, and I did 25 years. So you're welcome for your freedom. And when I say it, and they all laugh, they're like, that guy's like, I knew it. I knew I recognized you. But I also say to them, I say, you know, guys, it's always an honor to be with you, because, you know, a significant portion of young American men right now in the country are rudderless. You know, they don't really stand for anything. They're not used to being uncomfortable. They've never missed a meal. They're worried about getting high, watching Netflix, getting laid. But, you know, you guys have picked up the sword. And whether you get your Green Beret after this, whether you have to recycle this phase, or you get back to the instructors determine this isn't right for you, and you go back to, you know, a regular unit, you have my respect, because, you know, you've taken the step out, and they've put it all on the line. They've given so much. So there's good dudes, there's good people in the country, you know, despite we're lions led by lambs, unfortunately, in the military.
So let's talk Hollywood Weapons. This is one of my favorite shows, and for those that don't know about the show, tell our viewers what it's about.
Yeah, so Hollywood Weapons, I did some other things. It's Outdoor Channel is the network that we do it on. And several years ago, it's like 7 years ago now, I had done another thing for them called Elite Tactical Unit. It was like a SWAT competition, and we had real world SWAT guys. I was their team leader, and we had an Australian or New Zealand SAS guy was the other one. And it was it was really fun. And then I had a good relationship with them. They liked what I did. And then a few years after that, they came to me with this idea of testing guns and stuff, or weapons. And as you know, from Hollywood Weapons, we test a lot of things like swords and stuff like that now too, which is fun. But the initial concept of the show was more like, hey, let's just see if the gun can do what we see in the movie. And me and one of the creators and writers, Danny Ram, who's an amazing guy, we're like, yeah, that's cool. I was like, yeah, that's cool. That's kind of been done. And it's kind of not, if it's called Hollywood Weapons, let's get the Hollywood piece in there. Let's sort of reenact some of the scenes, drop a lot of references that if you know that movie or that TV show, you're like, I remember that. I remember when that guy said that. And it's funny because the pilot was Joe Mantegna. The first one we did was we tested Criminal Minds, because Danny Ram, the writer, is the personal assistant of Joe Mantegna, who, by the way, has become such a friend. He's the nicest guy you can imagine. And so he was the guest, and we were testing the Criminal Minds thing where I'm shooting guns underwater through a windshield, because that was in one of the episodes. And it was really just a straight, there was no dress up or any kind of like reenactment of scenes. But then we got approved for the series from that pilot. And then we started, Danny and I and a couple other guys, sort of subversively started doing things like, well, we're going to do Predator. Well, then why can't Terry dress like Schwarzenegger? And why don't we have like an opening scene where the Predator is after him and out in the woods? And I think it's so what it is, if I had to say that what the show is, it's kind of a buddy comedy, because my co-host Larry Zanoff is a incredibly smart guy. He's the head armorer at this independent studio services out in LA. They do all the guns and stuff. I do so many guns for movies and television. He's a one-man walking gun encyclopedia. And at ISS, they have their gun section is like a wet dream for gun people. You go in, they have all these different rooms of like period weapons that are actually, they all work, and they also design guns. So these are the guys that like, they designed the pulse rifle for Terminator. They did all those. They did the Oblivion guns. There's all these guns, these old muskets and stuff that have like Carl on them for Pirates of the Caribbean. So it's an actual gunsmith. So they'll take like an AK platform. What they'll do is they'll take an AK platform, strip everything off of it. So it's a functioning, heavy, cycling weapon. It's not a plastic toy. And then they add all the cool sci-fi shit to it. Right. And so that's a great job. So with Larry and I as a buddy comedy, because he's kind of the straight man and I'm kind of the idiot who's always ambushing him and, you know, popping up in inappropriate places. I also have a sidekick, Pompeo, who's this Spanish guy who's really funny. Yes. So he's great. And he's great. And he in season 1, he just had a short thing as the bartender. We tested Clint Eastwood stuff. And then it was like, people really liked him. And we're like, he's really good at this. He's really funny. And so he's become he's like, he steals the show half the time. So there's the three of us that kind of interact and joke with each other. it's a gun show, and that you're going to learn stuff about firearms, ballistics, and that kind of stuff. And it's also just the goal of the Hollywood Weapons is not to debunk a show and go, oh, Die Hard's bullshit. It's to celebrate it. So that's what I say. Because whether the test passes or fail, it doesn't really matter. But
Right.
we just want to see if it does. And I thought, man, if we're going to have Hollywood, let's get some of the people involved in the show, like actors. So to that end, we've had we tested Quigley Down Under. So Tom Selleck was a guest, incredibly gracious guy. Bill Duke from Predator, he played Mac. Gary Sinise was tested reindeer games. We Nick Searcy, your friend Nick Searcy, we tested stuff from Justified. He was the funniest dude ever. And other Bruce Campbell from
Army of Darkness.
Army of Darkness, yeah. And we were going to get a chance to meet him, but he was in Oregon. He was traveling, and so he was we did a Zoom meeting, and he was a incredibly gracious, funny guy. Everybody I've talked. So it's a show that we test guns from we try to reenact the conditions exactly like you'd see in the movie. And the tagline is kind of like I sort of created the tagline is, can you really do that? Is that possible?
Right.
Some of the tests are skill, like can Terry kill 2 targets with a Sharps Buffalo rifle at 800 something yards, like we saw Tom Selleck do. So some of them are like not Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, like when Mel Gibson's at the range and he just empties his pistol and he puts a smiley face on the target. Like, can I do that?
Right.
So that there's skill involved, but it's also can the gun do that? And so, but at the end of it, it's really about we want to have fun. And the best compliments I've had from people are like, hey man, you know what I like about your show? I can sit down with my wife and my kids and we all dig it. Everybody finds something cool to like. Because if it's a purely gun nerd show, it's for a very specific audience, and it's good. But we have the entertainment piece. We have kind of the funny stuff where we're riffing on each other, and then we also have the gun stuff. We also bring in some of the stars that were involved in the show. We also brought in some we brought in the armorer who worked on the Shadow movie with God dang it, Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin, right.
That was one of my favorite episodes because of the makeup that we did with the prosthetic nose, and we collided 2 bullets in midair, like in the show. We actually made that happen. That was the biggest surprise. We can talk about that. So if I had to talk about the show, it's a gun test, it's a buddy comedy, and it's a celebration of kind of like if you're a TV or movie nerd, you're gonna dig it because you're gonna go, oh, I love that. So that's what the show is.
Well, you guys take like these iconic stunts and these iconic special effects sequences and see if they really work. It's not just the gun stuff. I think that a great example is the Die Hard, which is not only can a Beretta shoot through mylar plated glass like they have at the Nakatomi Plaza or the Fox building in Century City, but also could you swing like Bruce Willis does on that fire hose and make it through? Because in the movie that's probably sugar glass, which is what usually the actors fall through, which doesn't cut you or anything like that, and it also breaks really differently. So it's an interesting concept where we have all these great iconic stunts and these great special effects that we think of when we think about these movies, and the movie geeks and the TV geeks like me who are, always been fascinated with the movie magic and the special effects. It's kind of like, could that really happen? Could you really do that? And, it's just kind of this perfect marriage of the gun stuff and the weapon stuff combined with the practicality of these stunts. And part of the fun, it's like you said, it's not about debunking. What I like is, I like it when you prove that it can work. And I also really like it when you prove that it's movie magic, because then it's kind of like it reminds me of what Hollywood's always been, which is fooling your eye and, and the suspension of disbelief. And,
that's very good said. It's funny you say movie magic because that's something that Larry has said multiple times during the seasons.
Yeah.
Where if something doesn't work, I'm like, oh, that didn't work. But Terry, it's movie magic.
Yeah, it's make believe.
Yeah, you believe it, and for sure you got that, and you're right. So some of the conditions we try to when you were talking about Die Hard, Season 1, we tested. It was the second show. So we did the pilot, and I think the next ones we did a bunch of them, but we tested Jaws. And the big test was we rigged up a mast on this range, and so I had to be at that angle on a mast, and I had the M1.
Just like
M1
Roy Scheider at the end of the movie. Yep.
Roy Scheider, the boat's sinking and the shark's coming, and he had already he shoved the tank into its mouth, remember, and it swam away, and it's coming back, and that awesome music, and he's on the side, and he's just the cop. He's like, what is he doing? And he's got the M1, and the shark is moving, and so he's on an angle, the shark's moving, and he's got to hit that what looks like a pie plate target as it's cut. And so we recreated that, and I was able to shoot it. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. And although the shark did not explode, but that was the fun part, where it's like you were able to hit it. So you proved that Brody could hit it, definitely. Especially, I think he had 6 shots, I think, as it's closing in on him or something like that. And then
like that, I think, yeah.
Yeah, but then it's like there's not enough compression inside there to make it combustible like that. So you guys threw in some charges or some kind of dynamite or something, and ended up blowing it up.
So I knew as a diver, I even talked about this a little bit. Look, as a dive instructor, compressed, and because in the movie, remember Hooper, when those tanks start rolling on the thing, he's like, that's compressed air, A tank can definitely hurt you, but what happens is if you puncture the tank, the air is going to be forced out so fast through that one spot that the tank's going to move away from that, right? It's not going to explode like you see. So we knew that was not going to happen, but what we ended up doing to make it fun, because I shot it, I forget the target, we shot it. It was just spinning this big shark model, right? It's a full-size shark model.
Right.
I was like, well, yeah, that was cool. And so we ended up doing is way down at the end of the range, we put some tannerite, and then I retook the shot and it just blew it up. So it's like we always try to end with something kind of fun. And even if it's a failed test, it's not failed because we get to have fun doing it.
Well, and you guys, the other thing about this show that I love, and I think other guys will love, even if you're not a movie geek, even if you just like movies and you like the movies that you guys feature, you guys blow a lot of shit up, and that's fun.
A lot of shit up.
Yeah, that's always fun. The other thing I liked about I like about the series, and especially reminded me of the Jaws series, was you went and spoke to the lead special effects guy on Jaws, and you got to talk to him about how they blew the shark up. And I think he said they used some dynamite in it, along with like blood packs and chum and all kinds of organic stuff to make it just explode blood and guts all over the place.
Richie Holmer, and he was a really cool dude. Like at first he was kind of shy, so basically we arranged it where I'd show up at his house. I mean, and he answers the door, and I think he lived in Burbank or it was in Burbank. And he has this cool little house, and we walk in and there's some memorabilia, and I was like, oh, and I'm joking on the guy. I said, oh, we're in the right place. And he pulls out, which was really cool because I'm older, and I don't know how you probably weren't alive when Jaws came out in 1976 or 7, maybe.
I was born. I was born in 76. So yeah.
Well, I was like 10. I was like 11 when that came out. I saw that in the theater, but it was funny because Richie was one of the guys. I don't remember if he was the head guy, but he was one of the main guys. He was young, and he brought out one of those old carousel slide projectors.
Yeah.
So yeah, fuck your computer. So he pulls that out, and these old yellowing slides, and it could click. And I got to see these pictures that were behind the scenes of like them. And he was standing in the mouth, and then he was like in a wetsuit. I was like, man, that's a hot looking dude. I was like, that's you, isn't it? He goes, yeah. And he was talking about, it was great to talk to a dude who worked on that, because he said every day that fucking shark would break, because it was like it was electronics and mechanical, and you're dealing with salt water. And he was talking about how they were just trying so hard to get this damn thing to work, and they'd lose a day, on the open ocean. I mean, like, anytime you're outside, you lose some control, right? But he said it was great because the suits would come out from LA, and they'd be like, hey, let's see the dailies, like, what'd you film? And they're like, we're working on it. And so Spielberg and those guys were super stressed because they're like, I'm going to lose my career after this. And, I think one of the reasons why he went towards the don't show the shark too much was because you couldn't. Yeah. And so that's why. And so basically it was serendipitous where, the shark was a problem. So instead of seeing the shark so much, you just hear the music and you see the movement. And by the way, I always thought that Creature from the Black Lagoon, you see the poster behind me, huge fan of those movies. I almost think that, and if you go back and watch the first Creature from the Black Lagoon, you see where Jaws got some of its stuff, because you see the underwater. This is like one of the first big underwater movies, and they filmed it down in these springs in Florida, and the camera's underneath, and you see the woman swimming. You hear the music, and it's kind of music, and you see the creature's hand kind of go right by her, and you don't see that creature fully until a little bit later, and then when you do see it underwater, you're like, what am I looking at right now? So I think what the story of that, and it was just great talking to a dude who was there, and he was just like all these funny inside baseball stories, but it was an amazing movie, right? It just that movie kind of changed the world. If you were just coming into the world, but there was a Jaws mania. And a lot of it actually was bad, because like Peter Benchley, who wrote the book, he came out afterwards. He's like, because then all of a sudden everybody wanted to go kill all these sharks, and he's like, listen, that's not what we want to do, because we do need sharks. They're an important part of the ecosystem. And so Peter Benchley actually ended up coming out later and said, I kind of regret writing the book, and the movie kind of put sharks on the back foot in a way, because they're like, they're getting just destroyed. But anyways, it was meeting him, and anytime you can talk to a dude on the ground who worked on that project is just really fun. And he was a really gracious guy. Yeah.
Well, guys like that, and also guys like Phil Dykstra and all the guys at Lucasfilm, those guys were real pioneers back then. A lot of that special effects stuff was brand new. That wasn't something that Hollywood really did.
They were making it up as they went. Like they're like, oh, we have to do this. And that's why one of my favorite movies of all time, I think we've talked about this, is The Thing, right? And Rob Bottin, he was a young guy, dude. That almost broke him. Like for a year, he just never went home. He was asleep, probably snorting cocaine, just working on all these practical effects that he came up with, and they were just nightmarishly scary, to the point where the movie, The Thing, I wanted to test stuff from The Thing, but there really wasn't that much we could do. Maybe some flamethrower shit. The flamethrower stuff is cool. And we also had another great guy. We haven't had him on in like the last year and a half, Andre Ellingson. He was some of the great blowing up stuff you saw was because of him. He was the lead special effects guy for Criminal Minds. But some of the set pieces we did with him, that cost a lot of money, because we're blowing up big things. And and movies like that, Star Wars was one of them too, that came out like I think the year after
77.
Around that time, and I saw that in the theater, and I was blown away. Again, we hadn't seen. I mean, it's a story as old as time. The Joseph Hero with 1,000 Faces, the hero's journey, but we'd never seen anything like that. And that was
the motion control cameras and all that stuff that they actually had to invent in order to make the movie. You had guys like Doug Trumbull, who worked on Close Encounters, who were probably some of the best in Hollywood at the time. But Star Wars really ratcheted things up to where it's kind of like, that's the standard bearer for decades of special effects afterwards. And then obviously, CGI kind of comes in and changes a lot of that stuff.
It's CGI. I think CGI is a good tool if it's done right. But like, I think this problem is, and I think we see this hugely now, in the last 10 years, maybe, like they use it, they overuse it. And because they're also rushing it, it's sometimes not even as good as it could be, because they're really stressing out these people doing this. And so you have a movie now that comes out with heavy CGI that doesn't look as good as Lord of the Rings, which came out in 2001. And so there's, CGI is a good tool, but when you start relying on it immediately, as soon as you start thinking about it being CGI, it's pulled you out of the experience. And it's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to keep you in it. And so I think that's why some of these movies are so like, dude, I was reading that, and I won't watch it because I refuse. We tested Indiana Jones stuff. It was a great fun episode. We went down to Texas and blew up a tank and all this other crazy shit. But like, I think like, the newest Indiana Jones movie, Dial of Destiny, was just awful. Like it was like they spent $300 million on it. They probably lost $500 million on that movie because with the marketing and everything. And it's heavy CGI. They changed the character. They turned him into a bitter old man. And they did the same thing. By the way, Harrison Ford's had two iconic characters in cinema get destroyed. Han Solo, they destroyed him.
Yep.
And Indiana Jones. And it's like, why would you do that? And these movies fail hugely, and they just still keep. I don't know. Something's got to change in Hollywood. Like, you have to understand that there's a reason why we like these characters, and it's not a misogynist thing. There's a hero, there's an arc, right? Because Han Solo, when you meet him, he's a cad. He's a kind of a just I'm in it for myself kind of thing, but he's likable. But he's not, he's not on board with all this rebel shit. But he, at the end of it, he becomes, he saves the day, right? He saves the day, and he becomes later on in the lore, he becomes like a general or something like that. And then Lucasfilm gets bought by Disney, and Kathleen Kennedy just destroyed that franchise, destroyed it. And
it's funny you're talking about that scene. Marcia Lucas, George Lucas's ex-wife, who edited A New Hope and also edited Empire and Jedi. A lot of people say she is kind of the magic and the heart behind.
Those films wouldn't be them without her. She saved those. She saved those.
A funny thing about Han Solo swooping in with the Millennium Falcon and saving Luke, she said to George, if people don't stand up and applaud and go crazy during this sequence where he flies in and Yahoo, you're all clear, kid. Yeah. Let's blow this thing and go home.
Goosebumps when you're talking about it. I got goosebumps. It was that good. Here.
She said, if that doesn't, send the audience through the roof, the movie will fail.
Right. You're right.
But I mean, she knew. I think I think she was the heart and soul. That George is such an engineer and such a technical mind. And you talk to Carrie, or I've seen interviews with Carrie and Harrison and Luke or Mark, and the only direction that George would ever give them is faster or more intense, or faster and more intense. So, it's.
I think by all accounts, I actually posted this a while back, and I knew I was going to catch a lot of shit on Twitter. I was like, can we just be honest? That George Lucas just really wasn't that great of a director. He just wasn't, and he had the vision, and there was some things he was good at, but he did not. And because I didn't think the prequels were that good. They just weren't that good. I remember I was living in New York City. I had gotten out of the armies before 9/11. I came back in right after 9/11. So I was just getting ready to graduate from Circle in the Square Conservatory, and Star Wars came out, right? What is that one? The first one that came out?
Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace, right. Sorry.
Right.
And I went with my girlfriend at the time and some friends, and I was just like, it just wasn't that good. It had cool moments. Some of the lightsaber stuff was really cool.
Yeah.
That was good, and there was elements that were good, but it was not that great. And I think the three of those were not. They were okay. There was elements that were cool. It looked Star Warsy, but I think George Lucas was, we owe him a debt of gratitude, but he was not, I don't think, a very good director, and he had good people around him. Hopefully that I kind of said, hey, I think by the time he did the prequels, he had less people saying, I don't think so, man. Like, you should probably do this.
He's also older. I mean, when you're young and you have something to prove, and you're full of piss and vinegar, and you've got a studio breathing down your neck saying, you better get this done and it better be awesome. I mean, there is a pressure and there is a time in your life, I think, when you're just young and hungry and you got something to prove. And I think all of those guys, those UFC mafia guys that came out of UFC, whether it's Brian De Palma, John Milius, George Lucas, Basil Polidaris, all these guys that came out of USC around the same time, that all the studios went and hired to make all of these iconic films.
Yeah.
They really were out there and were going to make their mark. And they did, because they made some of the most iconic movies.
100%.
We're still celebrating, all these years later. But Marcia was quoted a couple of years ago as saying that Kathy Kennedy destroyed Star Wars. She said that the people that are running Disney and run Star Wars don't know shit about Star Wars. And she said, I like Kathy. you know, she's a good friend. We all grew up together. She started out as John Milius's secretary back in the day. And then Spielberg hired her to just basically take notes. And Spielberg said something about, he said, you know, Kathy's great, but, you know, we hired her to sit and write our notes down. But she felt the need to pitch her own ideas. And that's not why we really hired her. So, you know, honestly, I got to give her credit. She's one of the best producers of my lifetime because
she produced some great movies. I think that's, she's not a creative. And she also, when you're heading a studio, I just think, you know, there a lot of ego gets involved. And, you know, when you come out and say the force is female, okay, what are you trying to tell people? I mean, like, the majority of probably 65-70% of the audience is probably male.
Of course.
And women can go see it. And it was popular with women as well. Gary Buechler from Nerdrotic said something I thought was, I don't know if I get the quote right, but he basically said, he goes, they took male, like a male-centered brand that everybody liked, and they turned it into a female brand that
a princess brand
that nobody likes, and so, like, that's just a real lesson. But I don't think they'll ever. And they did it to Indiana Jones. They destroyed Indiana Jones. They destroyed Willow, which was not that great of a movie. But remember, they had the series, and it was they got rid of it because for a tax break, because it was that bad.
Yep.
And so they still keep making movies, and I think at some point, I think a lot of these movies, they feel it's a self-satisfaction. Like, look, I've gotten across my message, but they're not making money. And eventually, you know, the piper's going to come to pay. You lose $200-300 million on a movie, and you do that more than once. Like Disney's just destroyed itself, you know?
Yeah.
And I think
it's bizarre.
Yeah. And listen, I love the idea of different kinds of people in stories. I think, but when you shoehorn them in with an obvious intent to make it that what's important, you destroy it. And example, like, I won't watch it because I'm a J.R.R. Tolkien geek, and I love Lord of the Rings was formative. I read that in the 70s, and when I first saw the first Lord of the Rings movie, it was in 2001. I rejoined the army. I was training back to get all this medical stuff, and I saw it with my girlfriend down in Tampa. I was getting ready to go deploy, like, in 2 months. I stood up at the end of that, and I was clapping. I was like, and he changed some things. There's some things that I didn't agree with. I didn't agree with his portrayal of Aragorn, because Aragorn was not a reluctant king. He was just, he never was like, he didn't choose exile. He always knew that was his destiny. If you read the books, he always knew that was his destiny. Did he have doubt? Yeah, sure. But, and it changed some other things too. But I think the reason the Lord of the Rings trilogy works so well is because Peter Jackson even said, he goes, we have no interest in putting our own belief systems into this. We want to be what Tolkien is. We don't care about ours.
Yeah.
And it was obviously the Lord of the Rings trilogy was crafted with love. It was love for that body of work, for the IP, for the lore. And it shows, even if you have to change some things for your whatever cinematic choices you make. I may not agree with them fully, but it worked for the movies. You getting back to your point about Kathleen Kennedy and Star Wars and stuff like that, I almost feel like they either don't understand that brand, or a part of them dislikes it and wants to crash it and make it into something new. And that's where you fail. That's where they failed. They put all their politics and their gender stuff and their race stuff on it. And it's so obvious that, you know, people are like, well, why do you care? Well, if it's not important, then why did you change races? You see what I'm saying? You're actually saying, well, what does it matter? Okay, sure. It doesn't matter. So why did you feel the reason to change? I would have loved to see, and they did Rings of Power, which I won't watch. Instead of doing what they did with that, I would have loved to see a whole series based on like Harad or Rune or the Easterlings, and find out why. And because then you could have all sorts of dark-skinned people, and it'd be interesting to know why they are such, you know, implacable, dedicated enemies of Gondor. There's a reason why that is. Maybe Gondor fucked over, and it would be, because again, and J.R.R. Tolkien wasn't racist when in the books, when they're watching the Easterlings, the Haradrim, the Easterlings come in, they're on elephants, and then all of a sudden the Rangers ambush them and they start killing them, and this one elephant comes running by, and they're just like, and this guy gets shot off the elephant and lands right in front of Frodo and Sam. And I remember them, Sam, or it might have been Sam who was the one who said, who was the hero of the books, really. But Sam actually said, he goes, as he's looking at this dead guy with this black hair and dark skin, and he's laying down on his belly, he's like, I wonder if he's kind of just like me. He's far from home. He was sent to war by his rulers who don't care about him, and maybe we could get along. Basically, like, he's a human just like me. I would have loved for somebody to use creativity and flesh in that. That would be incredibly compelling. Or like, I would love to see a body of work done on like African mythology. Why can't you instead of race swapping, which is so like obviously and just so clunky and stupid, why don't you just create new things where those characters work? And they're talking about first black action heroes. Dude, Blade was one of my favorite movies. That came out like 99.
Yeah.
Blade, you could say, I think you could say without being inaccurate, Blade is what put Marvel on the map. It was after that. Yeah. I mean, and it was a black action hero, and no one sat there and goes, I don't want to see a black dude on screen. It's like, dude, I want to be Blade,
Yeah. Even Steven Dorff recently was just like, they don't need to remake it. The first one still kicks ass.
It's so insulting. And that's another thing you see in Hollywood too, is all of these reboots for the, as Critical Drinker says, a modern audience, right? Right. But these are, what's happening is these projects are not being made by artists. They're being made by activists, and activists are not particularly talented. They're not creative. They don't really see the deeper picture. It's just this, I'm going to do this. We have to have, like what they did in the Star Wars, the last three movies. They took a character, Rey, and they just made her impervious. Like, she was perfect from the get-go. She didn't have to go through any real struggle. I mean, she beats Kylo Ren, and she's never trained in it. And it's not that I'm looking at that going, oh, stupid girls, I hate women. I'm like, there's no character arc. There's no journey there. You're just putting her in as this sort of like girl boss kind of thing. And it just, on a deeper level, I think we sense the inauthenticity of that. It just doesn't, and it doesn't resonate. It resonated in Jaws when Brody, who hated the ocean, who was scared shitless, hung in there and killed the shark, right? That's a character arc. And then, the character arc of Luke Skywalker and of Darth Vader. And this is what we want to see. And we don't care what the race is, but it just sucks, because I feel like so many of these studios and stuff are being helmed by people that they just have no business being there. Well,
you're talking about universal themes, that are, this goes back to like the Iliad and Beowulf. I mean, these are universal themes. These are human stories that, no matter what era you're in, resonate with people. And obviously, boys like different things than girls in movies, but now we're just getting it all mashed together in this weird weird way, which doesn't work for really anyone. Nobody likes these movies. It's like Madam Web. They blame male audiences. They blame the audience being racist and sexist for not going and seeing it. Well, women didn't go see it either.
That's right. Same thing with the Marvels. The Marvels movie was, they're basically saying, fuck you, this isn't for men. Fuck you, it's a girl movie. And guess what? Even on the low audience turnout, it was still 65% guys.
Yeah.
So like but you can't keep shitting in people's cereal bowls and expect them to keep. Eventually, they're just like, I don't even watch stuff now, dude. I don't know about you. Like, I go back. I'm constantly watching movies that I love, old movies. I go back and watch crime shows from the 70s. I just think because then the story is what matters. The character arc is what matters, not hey, look, we have this many black people, this many Hispanics. We have to have a gay person. It's just like, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. It's so artificial.
Speaking of which, the Disney DEI quotas, which Elon Musk tweeted a couple of weeks ago, which is an internal document from Disney, which shows how they are hiring underrepresented groups. 50% underrepresented groups for lead characters, 50% for supporting characters. Now, this just doesn't apply to the actors. This applies to directors, line directors, crew, everybody down the line. You have to hire either an underrepresented group, whether that's based on race or sex. And honestly, that's a complete and total violation of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. Elon Musk and Mark Cuban got into it on Twitter a couple weeks ago about DEI, and
Yeah.
Cuban was defending DEI, saying, "Yes, I use it. I think taking into consideration race and sex is a good thing when you're hiring people." Well, the commissioner for the EEOC, Andrea Johnson, I think her name is, she jumped in and just said, "You're dead wrong." That's a quote. She said, "Mark Cuban is dead wrong." She said, "If you are using discrimination to fight discrimination, two wrongs don't make a right. It's a violation of the law. Discrimination is discrimination. And the law clearly says you can't hire based on race and sex." So
didn't Musk even say then too? He goes, "Okay, Mark, that sounds great. So when are you going to hire an Asian person for an Asian woman for what's his
the Mavericks?"
The Mavericks. Right. Yeah, it's like crickets. Is right. So, you want to have the best people.
But to get to what you're talking about, I think the reason why we're seeing this decline in talent, because the writing sucks. We all agree the writing sucks. The creative direction sucks. The choices that they make from the standpoint of who they hire on the camera and behind the camera has had this slow decline. And you can kind of track where that begins back in like 2011, 2012, when a lot of these studios started instituting DEI quotas when it comes to hiring stuff. And honestly, man, you're never going to allow creativity or merit to flourish within an environment where you're enforcing DEI quotas. It's just not going to happen.
That's also incredibly insulting to the Black, brown, female, gay people that are talented and got there because they're talented. So
right.
It's another thing too. I mean, like it's to me, if I was just a normal Black dude and I see that they're promoting these people that are clearly just hacks but they're because of their skin color, it cheapens the achievement of the people who are Black or whoever and have clawed their way up with talent and drive. And instead you're just promoting this person purely on what they look like. Everybody loses on this. I remember back in the 90s when I was going through the Q course, they were going to get rid of the swim test because there weren't a lot of Black guys in special forces. And they were saying, well, what's stopping them from getting through the pipeline? Well, a lot of them don't apply. It's just not kind of a cultural thing in the military. But the other thing was they're saying, well, we're losing the number of Black guys who apply to special forces are failing the swim test. They just never learned how to. They're not comfortable in the water. So instead of fixing that the right way, they're saying, well, let's just eliminate the swim test. Let's just get rid of that standard. And the community was like, including the Black dudes in the regiment, were like, fuck you. No, we need that. Like, you can't not swim and be in a Green Beret. You don't have to be a Michael Phelps, but there's a pretty good chance at some point you're going to end up in the water and you have to be able to. And so they got rid of that. But even back then in the 90s, early 90s, this shit was creeping in to the military.
Yeah.
And it's okay. The worst that happens in the cinema world or the entertainment world is just you get bad entertainment. But if you start doing that in the military or the airline industry or something where actually people's lives could rely on that, then that is really bad. And we're seeing the results of that now. And I just think it's just funny because I remember the Black dudes in the regiment back then were like, do not do that. Do not get rid of the swim test just because they can't pass the swim test. I passed it. You know what I'm saying? Like standards. It's like, why would you get rid of that? So that's because, again, back in the military, at least for mostly broadly speaking, in the combat world in the military is a huge organization. The combat piece is like that much. That's all based on merit and achievement. You don't hit these standards. If you can't do this, you're gone.
Right.
We don't care what you look like. We don't care what religion you are. We just don't give a shit. But like, if you start trying to shoehorn that stuff in, everybody loses.
Yeah, you compromise everything. Absolutely.
Everybody loses. The whole thing falls apart. And we're seeing that now.
It's no different in entertainment. I mean, that's what we're watching in entertainment, and this precipitous decline of quality. It's not that, you're saying that, you watch a lot of old shows. I do too, but there are some really good new shows out there, I think. And I think a lot of the studios are starting to kind of course correct. Disney being the one that kind of still refuses to course correct. But When I look at Prime and what they're doing with Reacher and Terminal List, I say to myself, okay, these guys are course correcting, and they're giving the male audience what a male audience wants, and also the girls like it too, right? Because they like it when Chris Pratt takes his shirt off, or when Alan Rickson takes his shirt off, and girls also like masculine, tough guys taking out the bad guys, and they also like the story.
100% right, man. And if you just let that be what it is, and it's going to be, and the only reason they're course correcting though is not because they saw the error of the ways, it's because they're losing money.
They want to make money. Yeah.
Money. And at no point could you convince these people that what just ideologically, like, dude, that's a really bad path to go down. No, they were all in on this shit, and they were going to ride this train to the end. And it's only now that it's off the cliff and they're just like free falling with no money. Then they're like, so, but that's how you change the bit. That's why right. I know it sounds ridiculous, but like, look, I was a football player from 5th grade all through small college. So football was and I think football for me was a huge influence in my life as far as being on a team and working hard and getting crushed and coming together and 11 guys looking down the field kind of thing. It translates well to the military and the combat. But if that starts going away, like if you don't, what was I going to say? I just lost my point. I just lost my train.
Well, it's one of the reasons why they they go after football is because it is directly related to the military. It's masculine.
Right. So several years ago, I just stopped watching the NFL because I just was like, when they made Drew Brees come out and wear the name Jacob Blake on his helmet. Jacob Blake was the guy in Wisconsin, the convicted sex offender who got the cops, his girl, a black woman, called the cops, the white cops, and a lot of them were white, and she was afraid for her life. So they come, this guy, whatever happens, he ends up pulling a knife, he ends up getting shot. They don't kill him, but he gets shot. Kamala Harris flies out to Wisconsin to say she's proud of him. Kamala Harris, a senator from California, did not go to the funeral of the Sikh police officer who got killed by illegal immigrants. No one from the government came to that, but they all flew to that. And then they made Drew Brees put this guy's helmet on his name on his helmet. And then Drew Brees was talking about how his granddad, who was a World War II vet, hey, made him talk about white privilege. I was like, I'm done with you. If you're going to do this, I do not. And the only way that NFL will change if everybody stopped watching them, but they're not going to, because people are, honestly, I hate to say it, like, sports ball is really important to them, and they could tell you to go fuck yourself, and you'll say, okay, when's the game on?
Right.
Same thing with a lot of shows. Like, I just won't watch them.
Same here.
I will watch, and I miss it because that was my sport. I really love that sport. I'm not going to look down my nose at anybody who watches football, because whatever, you make your choice. But for me, I just realized, getting back to your point, the only reason there's any course correction is if they lose money. And if they don't lose money, they're not going to fit. No, Roger Goodell, whatever he believes in, who cares? He's not going to change until he starts losing money. And if you keep patronizing them and giving them money, they'll just keep rubbing your nose in it. And that's okay. I guess you're willing to accept. I'm not willing to accept that.
Yeah, I'm not a believer in canceling anything. People make real blanket statements that all entertainment sucks and Hollywood sucks and this sucks and everything sucks and sucks. It's just like, no, that's not really true. And on top of that, there are good things out there to watch, like Hollywood Weapons. And it's like, you've got to send your money and your attention and the ratings, the numbers. You've got to make the people the bean counters who make these decisions about what show gets picked up for next season and what we're going to start producing next. Or, the fact that nobody watched Grease: Rise of the Pink Ladies, so they killed it. It's been scrubbed. It's gone forever. Just like that horrible Batgirl movie that Zaslav and Warner Brothers just wrote off. They just scrubbed it. It's gone forever. So it's like, yes, it's important for you to still watch things that you like, because that sends a message to the studios to what you like. And it's also important that you abstain from the stuff that you don't like.
That's the problem.
Stay away from it. It's just like, it's just like back.
I'm not giving them my money. I'm not changing the world by not watching the NFL, but I can't, in good conscience, with the bullshit that they're pulling out. I just won't watch a game.
And what's funny is, the top stream shows, it just came out the other day. The top stream shows are all older shows.
Yeah.
It's Seinfeld, it's Friends, and it's like, geez, I wonder why. And it's not just because there are more episodes of those things and you can go back and really binge for a long time. It's because they were written better. They were written by talented people. And the networks really did know what they were doing when they were making sitcoms back in the 80s and 90s. And that's why you can sit down and watch Family Ties, and it is so fresh and fun and, and sincere. And it just lacks all the cynicism that today's shows have. It's really refreshing, and that's why people go back. It's comfort food in a lot of ways.
Exactly. My gal always laughs at me because like she'll come in and I'm watching The Thing for the 80th time, or Blade Runner again, and it's like I'm just like I watch Columbo, or like I'll watch like these. And I'm just like, I just can't help it. Like you just comfort food. That's exactly what it is, because I know it's good. I know what I'm going to get. I'm still even surprised when sometimes I'll still watch some of these older things and go, oh, how did I miss that? Like, I don't.
It's also interesting that, the episodic TV of those eras, it's a beginning, a middle, and an end. I mean, it's really rinse, wash, repeat, whether it's Magnum PI, Knight Rider, Airwolf. You kind of anticipate what's going to happen. And it's the same with Cosby Show. It's the same with Family Ties. It's the same with Cheers. So the episodic writers back then really understood how to package these things.
True.
So, it's one and done. And then you start over the next week. Whereas the streaming stuff, it's like, okay, we're going to make basically a movie which is stretched out over 5 episodes. That's really different than sitting down and writing a standalone story for this week's episode of Friends.
That's a really really, really good point.
So it's like a totally different philosophy, or how you would attack it from a creative standpoint. And I just think that's another reason where some of these shows work, some of them don't. But I think you get a whole lot more hit and missing with streaming than you did back in the day with the networks, who had kind of this machine that was really well oiled and just kind of.
It's funny because did you see Godzilla -1? Did you see
it? Was fantastic. It was fantastic.
Right, and it was on my birthday, December 4th, and Chris was like, "What do you want? We're going to go out to dinner."
That's our birthday, by the way.
Yes, that's right. I forgot. Yes, that's right.
You, me, Jeff Bridges, Chris Hellman. I think Tyra Banks. There's like a bunch of people on December 4th.
So, but like I was watching some of the people I like Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker and Disbrew and all these people who had seen it. And I was like, oh, this sounds right up my alley. And so I'm at the beach here, where it's like, we have one theater, but they get good movies. And it just so happened it was on that night. It just came in that night to the Outer Banks, and we went to go see it. And Chris went to go see it. And she's not a kaiju fan. She doesn't know Godzilla, but she was such a good sport, and she brought me to it. And I was riveted. There was a couple times I could feel emotion. I was like, this is really great. I was invested in those characters, that's the key. And but at the end of it, she goes, you know what? She goes, I really liked that movie. It was really good. And it was really good. And it was like the dude who did that, the Japanese guy, it was done out of Toho Studios, the original Godzilla people. But he wrote it, he directed it, and he was the VFX supervisor.
Yep.
They did it for like less than $15 million, and it looks better than anything you can see right now.
That guy's really talented. In a lot of ways, I think the reason why they were able to keep the budget down so much was because he's kind of like a James Cameron. He's the writer, he's the director, and he's also worked in VFX. A lot of people don't know that James Cameron was a matte painter. I mean, he worked for Stan Winston. He came up, working in special effects. So he really understood the mechanics, and probably also understood how to cut corners and when to use practical effects and when to use CGI. And I think that's one of the reasons why they were able to do so much more with less on Godzilla -1. But hey, man, I didn't recognize any of those actors. No. I thought they were really compelling characters. Like you, I got choked up a couple times because you really feel for the characters.
Just shows you, and here we are watching this movie, and it's subtitled, right?
It's a foreign film, right?
Foreign movie. I don't like dubbed movies. I like watching.
Yeah.
So but you know, and I think, you know, I do, if I was really being nitpicky, I felt like, you know, a little bit was overacted maybe on the guy, but not really. It's just that's the Japanese style. But you gave a fuck about those human characters. And most Godzilla movies that you don't, it's not that you don't really care. They're just there to get crushed or like run away. And
Right.
but when Godzilla shows up, and you see Godzilla right off the bat when he's small before he gets, you know, nuked. And you the how the, you know, I don't want to spoil it if anybody hasn't seen it, but I'll just say this: what was great about that movie was just what we've been talking about these other movies missing. There was a character arc that you are just invested in. You want to see him overcome it. You can feel how broken he is and how his sort of cowardice has determined his life. And then he meets the woman with the baby, and then, you know, another small character which I thought was really well done was the woman who was like punching him and spitting, going, "You coward, we're here." And yet she helps take care of them. Like again, what an interesting arc there. And just the whole thing was just like, you watch that movie and you go, they did that for $15 million. That is embarrassing to Hollywood. That is so
I know.
Like
Yeah.
they just took your lunch and delivered a better product on all levels. The sound, the special effects, and the writing and the character arcs that's what really made that movie great. And it was, we need to get back to that. I think the only way to do, and I think a lot of movies, you know, like, I don't know, you see some of these big movies now, like, how many producers do they really need, and how much are they getting paid, and what are they really contributing, and how much money to spend on the CGI stuff, you know, like that's a lot. I think it costs a lot. And then of course, a lot of these movies, because they're written so crappy in the first place, they got to go back and rewrite them. So,
or reshoots. There's all these movies with reshoots.
And when you're doing reshoots on, like, you know, Indiana Jones, that's a lot of money, man. So you're racking up debt. So if you had it written right the first time, you did it right the first time, you wouldn't have to do that. And it's just a big bloated system. And I think, you know, I feel like, I was talking to Matt Marsden, my friend, he's in Texas now, the British actor. He's a super nice guy, and he was on. You're going to get to see him on Hollywood Weapons. He's a good shooter, by the way. He makes a great shot. He's going to be proud of that. But he was even saying, he goes, "This is the time." It's hard though, because he's talked to different people who have money, and was like, "Listen, why are we not doing this? We can walk away from this Hollywood model right now, and there's, you know, you should build a studio in Texas." And it's just like, he's like, a lot of times they just kind of like, yeah, that sounds good, but they're just not willing to take the plunge. And you know, you have these really mid-level people, not very talented people, like calling the shots in a business that just could be so much better. It's just so much better. So wasting money, insulting the audience, and it's just some weird ego vanity project that, you know, okay, cool, the force is female. How'd that work?
Yeah, I mean, that's when I look at movies like Beekeeper, and I look at what David Ayer and you know, I look at Tulsa King. You know, there's a shift, and I think that mid-range, mid-budget action movie is going to come back with a vengeance. We're already starting to see it. Even Aaron Eckhart is jumping in. He's got some new movie coming out called The Bricklayer, where he plays kind of a retired black ops guy who kind of comes out of retirement to get the job done one more time. You know, it's funny watching all of these older guys like Statham and Sly and others kind of come back from the wilderness to set things right, you know, not only within the story, but also within Hollywood. Because honestly, man, some of these movies I can't wait to see. You know, this Land of Bad movie is like all the rage right now.
I don't know anything about it.
Mid-budget action movie with Russell Crowe and Liam Hemsworth. It's a special forces rescue mission. It's kind of it's got a little bit of Bat 21, you know, where Russell Crowe is the drone operator who's circling above Liam Hemsworth, who is evading the bad guys, cartel guys, and he's got to get to a certain point to get rescued because his team's been separated. Most of them have been killed off. You've got this kind of John McClane, Owl Pal sort of relationship between Liam on the ground and Russell in the air with the drone. And apparently Russell is just fantastic. Liam's great. It's got everything. Christian Toto did a great review of it on Hollywood Toto. Yeah, I
He's
have
great.
him on quite a bit because he's just a great guy to talk to, and he's got
Well,
great.
another movie that, by the way, and we tested in season 6. I don't know, it might be the last one. I don't know what they're going to save that, but it's a good. We tested the film Nobody,
Ah,
and with
Bob Odenkirk or
and
Odenkirk or something.
Bob Odenkirk. And that was funny. We actually were going to get a chance to interview him. He had to leave. He was gone. He had agreed to interview us. He did get back to us after he saw the episode. Danny sent the episode to him, and he goes, "That was really great." He goes, "He really liked it, because it was, and a lot of the tests didn't work, but it was still fun." And I had to make up. They sent me that poster of Nobody that with a fist, like they got me doing that. And there's a movie that probably wasn't that much money to do.
No.
It's a mid-budget action movie. What's nice too is that it defied your expectations. Odenkirk, who would have thought this dude would do this?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he's like, that bus scene is one of the best scenes I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And Christopher Lloyd comes in at the end. Who's his brother?
I saw it once. I need to watch it again, but I really enjoyed it. And he's the last guy that I kind of expected them to throw into that kind of a role.
You get invested in it because you don't know anything about him. You just see the beginning. He's just this sort of schlubby guy that works every day, and then you find he was a fixer for one of the organs. He was like, he came to get rid of people, and it was just, again, a really fun, over the top action movie. It was short. It was the pace was great. It didn't get bogged down. And it was incredibly. I think they're doing another one. I think they might be doing another one. But
I hope so.
And that's how when John Wick, the first John. I think I didn't see John Wick 4. It didn't sound very good.
Me neither.
They got worse as they went along. I think they got too self-indulgent. And at a certain point, if you're watching an action scene and you're actually getting bored, you've made a mistake. Yeah. And I think the first one was like a revelation, because that we hadn't seen quite a movie quite in that way for quite a long time. Yeah. And I don't think they probably spent that much money on that. And it just instantly catapulted Keanu Reeves back to the top.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me swing back to Hollywood Weapons, because I wanted to mention you guys have featured so many amazing and iconic films and TV shows. And, you do the stunts and the special effects. And I just wanted to give a taste for our viewers. So far, you guys have featured Die Hard, Indiana Jones, Lethal Weapon, Army of Darkness, Home Alone, Braveheart, Quigley Down Under, Chips. I've missed Chips. James Bond, Underworld, Predator, and many others. I mean, we got 5 seasons now, 6.
Right.
Typically 7, 8 episodes. So I mean, you guys have
season. This season's gonna have 9, right?
What stands out as far as like the most exciting and fun episode, if you could narrow it down to one, which is probably difficult?
Yeah, it is tough. Anything where I was put into like a kind of an uncomfortable position where I was like, damn, I don't know if I can do this. Like I was really, when I made those Quigley Down Under shots with that Sharp's buffalo rifle from like 820 yards where you kill 2 guys, just like in the movie. And we did the math when we watched it of when the guy gets shot, and when you hear the report, it's like, that's about 820 yards based on the speed of that bullet. And so I was in this canyon. It was out in California, and I set up this fighting position. And dude, they said I was so mad at our production team, because I was like, light was getting down, sun was starting to go down, and there's high ground, so it's like it's getting shadowy in the canyon. It's 820 yards away, and it was a matte black ballistic gel target, matte black, so nothing shiny. And there was one directly behind it, and my line of sight. I could not see it with the naked eye. I had to use a spotting scope, find a tree. It was sitting on like those big wooden comma wires, cable spools. So it was on top of that. And I did the spotting scope. I'm like, okay, it's above, it's right between that and that. When I took it by eye, I couldn't see it. But when I looked at it, I was like, okay, that's where that sight post has to go. And I took a shot, and Larry and the Quigley Cup winner, he was there too. He was so cool. And they're like, yeah, he went off to the left. So I didn't really want to adjust that much. I think we adjusted the sights. So I took 3 shots, and they said the last one, they said it just went right over his shoulder. I was like, I'm good. So he goes up and he shoots it, and he I can see the splash on the. So it looked like I missed. We go walking down there, and we're talking as we go. And then I was, hey, there's your shot. And he goes, hey, Terry. He goes, come here. On my third shot, I hit it in the heart, and it hit the heart of the guy behind him. I was like, that was lucky, but it was fun because it was like, that can be done. I think the one that you haven't seen was the D-Day from the air. I was on a harness about 120 feet high, and we lowered me at the same rate as you would do under a static line parachute, because we were basically doing like the longest day,
Right.
where the paratroopers were shooting guys on the ground with they had the Tommy guns, the Thompsons. So they had steel targets down there, and I had to engage them with live rounds as I was free, falling under a parachute. I did really well. And then they stitched me up with paintballs later, but that was really fun. The shadow episode was great because we actually were able to collide out on the range using, we weren't in a controlled physics lab. We end up having 2 bullets collide in midair, just like in the movie.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And I think, every one of them, there's been a lot of surprises. Like you were saying, I think what's cool about the show, some stuff I thought was going to work. Like we did a Breaking Bad one where I had Walter White makeup and I had bald head. Pompeo and I are riding in an RV with gas masks, like in the beginning of Breaking Bad. And like this one gas tank thing, we see it on movies all the time where you light this thing, put it in a gas tank, and the car blows up. Doesn't work. Work. So like there's some stuff I thought really would work, and then there's other things like we shot a wooden a rod that goes in and to tamp down a gun, and in the movie Clark Gable shoots a guy coming at him. Ricardo Montalban's in India. I just forgot the name of the movie. Shame on me. Oh my gosh, I'll think of it when we're done. It's an older movie from the 50s.
Yeah,
and it's a great scene because there's no music. Basically, his gun goes down. He has it so. And Ricardo Montalban, the Indian, is coming at him, and he shoves the cleaning rod into the gun and shoots it, and it goes right through. And we're like, is that possible? And it's fucking possible. I actually, we did a thing I did some bow stuff too. Like I did a Rambo bow thing. That was
cool.
And we also did a bow shot from
Army of Darkness.
Yeah, but we did a really good one from Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Shoot this lamp, and I hit this little oil lamp on the first shot, went right through it and blew it. Like when you get lucky, you get lucky. I can shoot. I'm not, there's better people than me, but I think all of them have been a lot of fun. Like I never had one where I was like, oh, that's kind of stupid. Like they're all pretty cool. And some of them are smaller ones, because, like sort of like a booby trap kind of thing from like James Bond with the shotgun shells or something like that. Some of those don't work that well. Yeah. But, and the thing is with the show, if it doesn't quite work so well, sometimes like you were saying, we'll just, to make it dramatic and have fun at the end, we'll blow something up. We'll put, hey, if it doesn't work, put some tannerite on that and get back. We've done nitroglycerin stuff from the Magnificent Seven remake. Chris Pratt was in that. He has this bottle of nitroglycerin on this wall, and he shoots it. It blows the shit. Well, that actually worked. We blew the shit out of this shack. We had a guy, this guy Jesse, who's this explosives dude, and we also made we made our own Claymore mine. Like in the film Nobody, at the very end, he straps a Claymore mine onto a riot shield, and he's running at the bad Russian guy, and he clacks it off, and it just blows the dude away. I was like, let's see. Well, it blew the dude away, but it also would have killed, Bob Odenkirk too. But we had actually like a homemade Claymore, and the damage it did was like, you've got to be kidding me. So it's just a really fun show to do because, like you, I'm a movie geek, and I'm also, special forces guy. So I want to know, is this possible? I'll tell you this too, behind the scenes, I get stressed out sometimes on, I worry because I want to do well, because if I don't do well, I'm going to catch a lot of shit from my friends. So like any of the skill tests, like the lethal weapon one, or the Quigley one, or there's a couple other sniper shots how to make, and some of these Western guns, I was always like, damn, I got to get this right.
Or like when you hack the leg off the guy in Braveheart, there's that one as well, which was, I was impressed, because I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Or even the, the shotguns with the zombies. I've always been kind of like, could buckshot take off an arm? Could it take off a leg? Could you take I think it's a double-handed sword and actually cut some guy's leg off? Well, you do it, and that's the cool part.
That scene where he takes that sword and he throws it over his head and it spins and it sticks. I was like, how the fuck am I going to do that? I did it.
Yeah. Yeah. it's really cool, and some of them kind of turn out like you wouldn't expect. Some of them are kind of somewhere in
Yeah.
between, being successful and a failure. But success or failure, the show's just fun. And the other thing about it is it's really obvious to everybody, I think, who watches this show that all of you guys are having a lot of fun. You're having the time of your life. I mean, to get paid to do all that stuff and to have people film it, it's just sort of like that's infectious when you're a viewer. And
Good.
And I got to say, I've watched all the seasons except season 6, which just debuted, and I don't think that there's a dull show or one where I go away being like, well, that's not one of their best. They're all fun because they're all really unique, and you guys do a great job.
That's the high. Thank you, man. That's the highest compliment we can get paid. Is that people? I always tell people, I said, yes, we'll educate you on guns and all that kind of stuff, is the safety stuff, and here's what the real. Yes, we'll show this a little bit, but I want people to have fun. I want people to smile during the show and go, "Oh, I didn't know that about that gun." But the main thing is, when you turn it on a half hour later, I want you to go, "Oh, that's pretty damn fun, man. That was a good ride." So that if we do that, we are succeeding.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say, and we talked about CGI a little bit, but you guys go back to films that are kind of pre-CGI or computer graphics, so the special effects are practical. And what makes practical special effects better than CGI from the standpoint of the actor? Because essentially you're out there in the shoes of the actor doing the stunt and performing this stuff, and from a tactile standpoint, and I'm just from that standpoint, what do you think is special about practical rather than digital?
Because you're actually in it. And it's the same. I'm a theater actor. I went to theater school, and I've done some shows out here. And the stage set is not just for the audience; it's for you. Mm-hmm. You're in the living room. You're in that area. And I think the same thing. If you see actors talking about it. If you're standing in a sound stage with just screens around you. I would think as an actor that would be pretty challenging to hit that mark and to hit that that beat when there's nothing to deal with. Like you're just not dealing like you said, tactile, visual, hearing, sense, smell, taste, whatever. All those things actually will actually add to your performance, because if you're not doing that, you're just literally acting in a void, and they're just adding shit, and it doesn't look good. It not only does it not look good, but it also doesn't lend itself well to an actor being able to kind of be in that moment, because you just have to completely manufacture everything. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a problem. I think that and the special effects that I remember, like The Thing or Jaws or stuff like that, they're like there was no computers in there. That was all practical shit. And you also I appreciate that. I understand there's the art aspect of the computer people too, but there's a real level of craftsmanship and art where you're actually working with rubber and wood and metal and like servo motors to make a joint move. It's incredible.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. It's like when I think about Indiana Jones, I watched some parts of this last one, and so much of it looks like a video game to me. And he's shot in silhouette, and he's running all over the place, and and then I think about my favorite stunt from Raiders, which is he gets thrown through the windshield of that truck, crawls underneath it, uses the whip, or he kind of does this, the stunt guy, it's probably one of the most famous stunts out there, and it's kind of ironic. It wasn't done by Hal Needham, who's probably the greatest stunt man alive in the history of Hollywood. But, that scene is so incredible because that it's a real person doing it. And that's what makes it all the more fantastic.
Adds to the stakes. You're actually now invested.
The digital stuff, even with its this last Rambo, there's a lot of digital blood and a lot of digital squibs. I really don't like those, man. I really miss those days of Rob Bottin, putting squibs on people, because again, as an actor, when those squibs go off, man, I mean, you feel them, and that blood flies, and it just adds to your performance. And I just think that, like, given how much CGI has taken over the production of movies, and they really eat into the budget. I think we're going to see a return to more practical effects, especially with these mid-budget action movies.
I absolutely agree, and I hope so. And think about this too. Just made me think of this. Another one of my favorite movies of all time is Alien.
Mm.
And can you imagine when you read about those actors were legitimately like freaked out when the alien pops out of Hertz chest and it gets blood all over them, like Veronica Cartwright, I think that's her name, Veronica
Yeah.
Cartwright, the actress. She's like, oh God, like they were like not really, they obviously they kind of knew something was going on, but that a real thing popping out of a real person and blood being thrown in your face, they weren't acting. They were like, holy, they were like, so you couldn't do that. If they had to pretend that was there and they had to act like blood, it just doesn't work. Like I think, and I do think, we're talking about money here, but yeah, dude, when a dude jumps off a building, like in Lethal Weapon, I know it was a stunt man,
Mm-hmm.
when Mel Gibson jumps off with the guy, like, hey, want to go? Let's go. You want to jump? Come on, we'll jump. And he jumped. By the way, you can see they're not connected too if you look closely on that. So fuck that up. That's another thing too. You don't get to take that. They didn't get to do another take. That was like the take that go. So you can see their hands are not connected, but you realize like it adds to the fear because you realize there's a human being putting himself in harm's way there. Same with driving, like all these driving movies, like William Friedkin with The French Connection and Live and Die. Another great movie a lot of people probably know is Live and Die in L.A. That's a great movie and great soundtrack from Wang Chung, but they have another huge car thing on the LA freeway. There's no CGI. That's real people driving, and it's fucking dangerous.
Yeah, they drive the wrong way.
They're going the wrong way, and it's just like
down the 405. Yeah, it's madness, dude. I mean, and Billy, I've heard stories that Billy said that he I think that they kind of blocked off the chase scene for The French Connection where he's chasing the L. He had the real cops on the set. He had the real Popeye and the real Shady on the set helping out. And I think that they, to a degree, blocked off stuff, but I don't think they really officially blocked off that road. So when you see Gene Hackman,
a lot more shit back then in the 70s too.
Oh yeah. But I mean, they really drove 90 miles an hour down that road underneath that L. Gene Hackman did it. And then the stunt driver for Bullet did the other shots. So it's done by real professionals, some of the best in the business. And that's the other thing, these practical effects, they cost like half, even sometimes less than the CGI. So, you want to bring these budgets down, start hiring these makeup, magicians and these guys who have this craft and this art, which is almost kind of a lost art at this point because the CGI is replaced so much. But it wouldn't take much to go back and start hiring these guys to do practical effects to bring the budgets down. And it's another thing. It's like with Tom Cruise. I mean, part of why we go see the Mission Impossible movies is that, or part of why I like to go, is because I know Tom's going to be doing all this stuff. Because that's his passion, whether it's driving that motorcycle off the cliff or hanging from the C-130 or just jumping across buildings, of which he broke his foot, I think, in one of them.
Didn't he also was I mean, they trained him in free fall parachuting like what I used to do in the Army, so he's going out the back of an aircraft. Like I think probably Tom Cruise is probably our greatest action hero because he does so much of that stuff. Whether you like him or not, I get it, but I mean, I think the stuff that he's willing to do for that film is pretty admirable, actually. Whether I mean, he's kind of seems like a kind of, I don't know, a weird dude, but he's a very intense guy, I guess, from everybody who's talked to him. But also when you're that kind of level, man, everybody wants something from you. But he's really good at what he does. And
I think he's the last action hero, especially from the era of the 80s and 90s when we grew up with kind of that masculine, tough, hero, that kind of hero archetype from that era. But I think, this guy self-insures himself because the studios won't. The reason why he self-insures himself.
So he does that himself.
He does because the studios are like, well, we're not going to pay for that. Why would we have you do it when we can have a stunt guy do it and get the same, nearly the same shot? And he's like, because the audience wants to see me do it, and I want to do it for the audience. And I think that's one of the reasons why people still love Tom, is because he really does do this for us. I mean, he's been given this life where he can play make-believe on the screen and do these fantastic things. So why not turned it into like kind of his own private X Games. It's like, it's crazy when you think about it, but he really is one of those guys. I don't care about his religion. He could worship, a three-headed hydra for all I care.
That's the thing.
It's the dedication to the craft and the performances, and just the guy will do anything to get the shot. And it's like with that motorcycle jump in the last Mission Impossible, he's like sitting there talking to Chris McQuarrie, and he's like, I think we should do it again. Like, don't you want to do it again? And Chris McQuarrie's like, no, because this is our star. What happened? If something happens to him,
pushing at that point,
we're done.
If you get a good take, you're probably done, because anytime you're riding a motorcycle off of a cliff, something can go wrong.
He's like, I think I should hold on to the motorcycle a little bit longer. I think I could do that. And they're like, okay. It's like, go ahead, Guy's just a beast, though, and it's like, it's the same with any of these guys who do their own stuff, and you see it, and that it's not some digital face that they've put onto a stunt character or even a prosthesis. There's just something about it, I think, that the audience loves, and obviously, it makes things a whole lot cheaper. That's for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, when you know that that's happening, you inherently, without maybe necessarily thinking about it, that the stakes now are raised. And so anytime you raise the stakes in a film, you've made the film better.
Yeah.
And this is why I was kind of upset when Jackson did The Hobbit, because The Hobbit, first of all, they took 3 movies to make, and The Hobbit's a small book, but there was so much CGI that it just took me out of it. I just was like, I lost interest in it. And I was like, there were some good moments. There's some really cool things in it, but in general, that was the problem with that. They made it super long. They brought in some other story elements that he just sort of fleshed out, which were mentioned by Tolkien, but not really, fleshed out.
Right.
But the CGI was bullshit. It was just like, when they're in the Misty Mountains and in the Goblin Caves, I was just like, no, this is not. No one's going to survive that. It looks completely fake. It's like I'm watching a cartoon, and when you're watching a cartoon, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I love Peter Jackson. I love what he's done with the original trilogy. I think it's marvelous. It's beautiful work, and it comes from, obviously, like we were talking about. The guy has such a deep love for the lore.
Right.
And that transfers onto the screen. Hobbit, to me, it's like, I remember when I first started watching it, I was just like, why are these colors so saturated? Why is it? And what's the deal with this? Extra frames per second. It almost looks like daytime TV or something. It just looked weird to me.
It was weird. I wonder what I wonder why they did it that way. I don't know what that was about. I don't know.
I think he thought that maybe he was on the cusp of doing something that was going to become sort of a standard bearer, but it just looks weird to me. And, not everybody's perfect, dude. It's like, when I think about what he accomplished with those first 3 films, it's sort of a miracle that they turned out that good without the studio sticking their fingers into everything, and this is sort of pre-woke, pre-DEI when all that stuff was being made. But,
I remember he said he had a meeting with because Miramax was involved or something initially, and like Weinstein was like, they were like saying to him like, no, you got to do this in one movie. He's like, I can't do that. It's not going to happen. And the genius also, which was the best thing they could have done, was to film all 3 back to back, because you have the same actors for 2 years in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And so there's a continuity there, because if you do a film and it's a year later, you're like, hey, let's do the sequel. Now you got to go get all these guys back. You've got to negotiate budgets. You've got scheduling. People
scheduling.
You're never going to get them again that way. It might take you years to do that, but by saying, here's the 3 movies, here's what we're going to do. And can you imagine as an actor what a brilliant thing that was to like basically live in New Zealand for 2 years and just work on probably some of the best films that I think we've ever seen.
Well, and the cast and crew, it's like a boot camp. It's like a 2-year boot camp, and you all become family and friends, and what that does for people's performances. And it was brilliant. It was a cost saving measure, obviously, but
so budget wise, that was a wise choice. Mm-hmm. Continuity and the idea of being able to fulfill a 3-film vision, that's the only way to do it. And then it's funny too, because you remember reading that Stuart Townsend was cast as Aragorn.
Yeah.
And good looking young guy, but they already started filming with him, and they're like, he's too young. He's too young. Like they actually literally changed it, and so they ended up bringing Viggo Mortensen in, and he had never even the motherfucker never even read the books, and he was talking to his son about it. He's like, Dad, you got to go do this, you know? And so he was like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I guess when he got there too, I mean, he was one of those guys, like he carried his sword everywhere he went.
Right.
He broke his foot when he was kicking that helmet, when they find the pile of dead orcs that the Rohirrim had killed. He broke his foot on that scene right there.
Wow.
Sean Astin cut his foot on glass when he was going in to swim after Frodo on that, when they went at the end of the first movie, when they're getting ready to cross over to Mordor, and he runs in there. He cut his foot wide open. I think Orlando Bloom fucked up his shoulder or his ribs or something like that. So
yeah,
it was, it was a physical. It's a physical. So you're riding horses too,
Well, yeah, I mean, we're talking about practical effects, and these are the risks. These are the risks
Yeah.
that you
But
take.
It pays off when you see that in the movie. It
Yeah.
pays off. Getting back to Hollywood Weapons, it's been a really fun project for me. It turned into something that, it turned into something even better. We're all bummed because we don't know if we're going to get another season. We've done 6 seasons, which is pretty good, and most shows don't get that. But like, the funnest part has been to just put myself in these characters for a short minute to make you laugh, and then also to just kind of meet people that are involved in the movie, that are in that industry, that contribute to that, and also just to kind of tell our own little story from the beginning to the end. When I always write I always do the conclusions. Literally, I write the conclusion I might not even have it all, but like the night before our final, when I have to do the final wrap up, I always write that together and it's always based on what I experienced during the filming. Like, what was that like? I didn't expect that. This was good. I wouldn't do that. And they let me do that. They've given me they gave me a lot of freedom on it. So it's been a really fun show to do.
That's probably why it's worked out so well.
I hope more people get to see it. It's kind of on a small network that's not really known for that kind of stuff, that's a deer hunting and fishing and
it is. It kind of stands out. But yeah, I love the show. I love the fact that you guys have fun. You dress up and play the actors, play the parts. I really like it when you interview guys like Tom Selleck and Bill Duke for Predator, and you guys talk about behind the scenes. And,
by the way, too, I want to say this too. Everybody that I met through the show, these big stars, they were all really, really gracious. They're really, I mean, I don't care. I don't know what their politics are. I don't know. I know what some of them are. Like, I know Nick Cersei's politics because we talked about that. And I was at his house. And by the way, at the end of the day, filming with him, he gave me a box of cigars. But I mean, so what I'm saying is, all of them they were all really nice. They're all really nice. I think they're all kind of happy and sort of like, yeah, they were cool. Like, yeah, this is the movie we did, and we're glad you're going to have fun with it. So there's been nothing, the whole show from when we started years ago, it's just been, it's kind of been a boy's dream. I mean, I got to incorporate being an actor with also using some of the stuff I acquired as a Green Beret. Like I said, at the end of the day, if you watch that show and you say you had fun, then we have succeeded. That's all I can.
Yeah, the things I love about it, and for our viewers, it's got great camera work. I love all of the slow motion playbacks. I think those are just awesome. I love the ballistic gel heads and the ballistic gel torsos that have like the ribs and the guts and everything. Some of them even bleed, which is cool. But especially with those the playback on the slow motion with the gel torsos, you really get to see like the shock waves that happen when a bullet hits the body or a sword hits the body. I mean, it's really amazing, and it's kind of like you never get to see that kind of stuff when it comes to these stunts and what it would actually
Phantom cam is the one that gets it super slow. You have a bullet going like across the frame.
It's incredible.
That's a really expensive piece of equipment. And a funny story before we go. So, and those shots, we're not doing what the guys working that. We have a very small team. We have really 2 main photographers. One of them, I think both of them have won Emmys because Brooke's done a lot of stuff with sports. He does a lot of sports stuff. He's like all over the world. Our sound guy who's great. A small team, but our makeup gal, Molly, the people she's turned me into, from Walter White to The Shadow I mean, like you name it, man. Like she's really great to the character of Nobody
or the
with all the
Godfather.
makeup and almost unrecognizable. So the funny story is the Phantom Cam, right? I won't shoot that bullet until the Phantom Cam is ready to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So season 1, we're doing the Clint Eastwood episode, and I was just kind of new to these guys. We'd filmed the pilot, and this is like the first one we were doing. And I was up in this loft, and we were doing the thing from Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where he shoots the rope, and Tuco, and because they're working together to scam people. So like he shoots the rope, the hangman's rope, it cuts the rope, and he gets wet. So I have to shoot a fucking like 3/4 inch wide rope with a 45 caliber bullet, which is the right size actually. It could do it, but hemp rope is really tough. We used hemp rope. We try to get what rope would be. And I'm like, man, and I'm using this Yellow Boy lever action rifle with a vintage scope, but all it has is a crosshair. There's no magnification, or there's a little magnification, but there's no like it's not really like a reticle like we use.
It was like a ladder. It was like an iron sights ladder.
It was just a freaking X, a X. That's it. That's all it was. And so I'm like, I had to hit this damn rope with this thing. And so everything's ready to go. I'm up there in the position. I take aim. I'm like, okay, I always do this before I was got this, man. So because they're all expecting me. This is where I have to do my job. Yeah. So I got the gun and I take the shot and I hit the rope. First time I shot it. And guess what? It didn't cut the rope, but all of a sudden John Carter comes back up. He goes, he was great shot. He goes, Phantom camera wasn't running. I flipped out. I said, guys, man, come on, man. Like, I'm never going to hit that again. Like, I got so lucky. Da, da, da. He goes, no. And then he did this. He goes, well, if you want, I'll take the shot. Basically saying, well, if you can't do it again, fuck it, I'll find someone else to do it. I was like, get the fuck out of my way.
Right.
So I get back on there and I ended up hitting it again. I think maybe either that next time or next time. But it was just funny. It's like, everything has to work. Like the Phantom Cam, when you're doing these kind of shows, the technical stuff is huge. Like they have the toughest job, man. They're setting up the shots under the sun. They got to get all this stuff. I'm kind of hiding under an umbrella, like thinking about what I'm going to do and watching what they're doing. But they're doing all the hard work. But I'm the one behind the gun. And so if I screw up, it's going to be very obvious.
Right.
I'll never forget. We still laugh about that. How I almost punched John Carter, my director, in the face because he was like, well, I mean, if you don't want to do it, I'll just get Corey or I'll do it. I was like, fuck you, bro. Give me the gun. So I shot it again.
They know how to motivate you, Terry,
Right off the bat, I started off like being like that guy who was like, I'm going to kill you guys. How could you not have the cam running? That's your one job. But it happens, and there's always, we're outside. Yeah. So in Chino Valley, where we've been filming a lot of stuff, during the summer, it's cool. The morning's great, but then around 10:30 or there's like this Scirocco wind comes in for about 2 hours. And you can, on several of the episodes, you can see while I'm talking, like even my t-shirt's just like blowing off to the side. And some of those days we had to shut down. If we were doing pyro that day, we were blowing something up, we can't do it because we're just not allowed to. And then, at the distances we're shooting, it's not affecting, the wind's not affecting, but it can affect your stance a little bit and like your ability to be solid. Yeah. And it messes with the plastic Lexan shields and stuff like that, because it'll start blowing stuff around. So it's fun. It's a challenge, but it's I hope we can do more, and I hope that if you watch this and you get a chance to see it, I hope you like it, because we definitely work hard on it.
Yeah, the other thing about the show, which is sort of a secondary aspect of it, which is really fascinating, is there's a lot of science and a lot of physics that you learn about this show. And, it's entertainment, but in a lot of ways it's educational. And I think I definitely learned more about science and biology through Breaking Bad than I did for 4 years of high school. And it's funny, with Hollywood Weapons, I've learned more about physics and science in a lot of ways from the standpoint of what you guys do, than I did through education, public education. So I mean, that's also the fun stuff, is you learn a lot of stuff. So plus, I think for anyone who loves movie trivia and behind the scenes info, it's just a must. Any movie geek out there is going to love this show. And like I said, plus you guys are having so much fun, you know, that also makes it a lot of fun to watch. So
yeah, and we respect all the movies, and you know, like I said, we don't. I'm not there to debunk it. So oh yeah, that show. No, it's to celebrate it.
Yeah.
It's a chance for me to have fun and to try to do this. And if it doesn't work, like even you know, like something happens, like I it doesn't work, or I'm saying yeah, but you know, I'm not James Bond. James Bond could do it. You know,
Right.
Clint Eastwood could do it. So
yeah. I mean, it can be done. It can be done. It just sometimes it needs a little movie magic and
a little movie.
And Larry on occasion will come in and sprinkle some movie magic on things when it doesn't work. And that's, again, you know, I mean, to me, it doesn't really matter whether it works or not. It's the process, which you guys make so much fun, and that transfers in each episode. So
yeah, it's like I said, as far as actually me pulling the trigger and doing these shots and stuff like that, we don't fake that funk. Like if I make the shot, I make it. If I don't, okay, maybe I have to do it again. Like there's a couple times, and we'll tell you that, we're not going to lie. There's a couple times like, man, that took me like 3 times to do it. You know,
right.
Someone better than me could have done it right away, but like, you know, it took me 3 times to hit that.
Yeah, that's part of the fun. So right now, all 5 seasons of Hollywood Weapons is free to watch on the Tubi app, which you can download for free. Check them out, because once you start with season 1, it's easy to sit and just binge every single episode. It's really that good and that much fun to watch. So the Tubi app is where you can access all 5 seasons, and then you've got the new season 6, which they can access by subscribing to the Outdoor channel, or maybe if you get that through cable, you can watch it as well. So
they have an app too called MOTV, like My Outdoor Television, something like that. But
perfect.
Yeah, it's around, man. And like I said, if you enjoy if you have fun with it, we've succeeded.
Well, and you know, viewers should also let Outdoor Channel know that they want season 7. That's the other thing. I want to see a season 7. So
do I. Or we got more shit. We have an unlimited amount of stuff we can test.
Dude, it's so endless. I mean, really, this show, it's sort of an endless possibilities with this show as to how far deep you can go and how many movies you guys can, and action scenes and special effects you can recreate. That's what's so much fun. So I mean, it's not that you guys have run out of anything. There's stuff that
one more thing too. You can write to Danny runs a Facebook page for Hollywood Weapons, and even if you just write the network, like a lot of our stuff is viewer driven. Like that's we've got a lot of our ideas from people saying, "Hey, what about this?"
Right.
You know, some of the stuff was like, I'm the one who pushed. I wanted to do Jason Bourne. I said, you got to drop me free fall and see if I can shoot something on the way down. And we did do that. We did that in season 6. But like, you know, some of the stuff is like a viewer is like, what? And we go back and we look at it. And so we'll watch that movie and that scene, and we just sort of talk about the feasibility of it, because it also, you know, we have to be able to do it safely. You know, right? It has to be able to be done. It also has to be done safely. And then it's like, do we have the ability? Do you have the ability to actually accurately do those conditions and test it? So that's what drive. But viewer suggestions have driven that show since the beginning. Really,
that's really cool. That's very cool. Well, sadly, we're out of time. Terry, go ahead and give everyone your social media coordinates so they know where and how to find you and what you're up to.
Yeah, I don't even do, I think I still have an Instagram account. Yeah, whatever. Don't care. I don't do Facebook. Don't care. But I am on Twitter. If you look up my name, you'll find me on Twitter. And got a lot of people in there we interact with. We have a lot of fun. And come see me, man. If you have suggestions, go to Twitter. I've taken stuff off of Twitter. I've gone to the team. I was like, have we thought about this? And they're like, why, that might be really good. So, you know, that's what we do. So thanks for having me. Dude, I always love talking to you, man. You're like one of the smartest dudes around, and a really talented artist too. And so talking about this with you, you and I could probably be talking for like 8 hours.
Yeah, so we could go, you know, probably all day. For more videos like this one, subscribe to Bounding Into Comics channel on YouTube and Rumble. Also, make sure and like this video and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. And if you've actually watched Hollywood Weapons, let us know what your favorite episode is.
Yeah, I'd like to know.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.